Today, let's talk about our Monarch 2-year curriculum review and our plans moving forward for summer 2022 and at least just through fall 2022. Hey everyone, so as some of you know, we have been using the Alpha Omega Publications Monarch curriculum for 2 years. Before using that curriculum, almost all the way through elementary and middle school, for at least my oldest child, we used a Becca curriculum at home, all parent led. This year, as we were finishing up the school year, we kind of noticed a few things that kind of have pulled us a little away from Monarch. But before we get to that, I actually want to get to a couple of highlights and a brief kind of history. AOP Monarch is a whole 100% online curriculum, well, mostly online curriculum. There are some subjects for like the elementary school grades that are covered through Monarch, and Monarch only goes through 3rd grade through 12th grade. So kindergarten through 2nd, you will still need something else first. Through 3rd grade through 12th grade. In 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade, every now and then you'll have these worksheets that you'll need to print off. So that's something to also keep in mind. But most of the time it's done on the curriculum. It's done on their website. You have a dashboard. On my dashboard, I can see all of my kids that are enrolled in Monarch, and I can see what subjects they're doing and what percentage of the subject they completed for that day. So on each subject, there are lessons, quizzes, and tests. There are also projects that you can choose to do if you want to. Some projects are automatically assigned for some grades and some are not. On the science, some of them that have more like items that are kind of hard to find or maybe really time consuming or need like a really big lab equipment and things that you may or may not have, they also have videos that your child can watch instead to try to complete the curriculum. One short coffee break later. So that's kind of a brief discussion of how it works. On the quizzes, you can assign them to be open book if you'd rather use the quizzes to study for the test. Many parents who use Monarch and discuss it through the 2 Monarch groups in Facebook right now say that most of their time, for especially like the higher grades, they leave the quizzes open book and let their kids be able to use them to study for the test. And then the test they do have to do completely from memory and no notes or anything, and they complete the test. Also for high school, at the end of each semester, like we have 3 semesters, we have fall, spring, and summer, and our umbrella school does it fall, spring, and summer. I would do summer, fall, and spring, but it is what it is. So at the end of the fall and spring semester, or you have 2 semesters that you have like basically to complete it. So at the end of each semester on the high school levels, especially the math and the language and at least the foreign language that I remember from last year, you do have midterms for those midterms and then final at the end. And then like before the final, if you have a midterm, like you have a second midterm and then you have a final. So like you do your second semester test for like just the second semester, then you have a course review and a test over everything. So let's kind of review about how AOP Monarch works. Now to also give you just a brief history to let you know how much information I know about AOP Monarch and what I do and don't know about. Our kids started in March of 2020. We wanted something different from Becca because Becca was no longer working for middle school for my kids. Actually, anything 4th grade and above was not working for my kids anymore. It was way more seat work than I wanted to do, and I will get to that in a minute. I know some of you are gonna say, just unassign it. I will get to that in a minute. I promise. I will get to that at the end because that is the #1 question I get on all my review videos every year is, why don't you just unassign it? I promise I will get to that at the end of the video. Let me get through this part. So I felt like Becca had way too much seat work. Becca was designed for Christian schools. Like you could do it at home, but honestly, a lot of it was designed for Christian schools. So there's a lot of seat work to fill those 170 to 190 days that are required by the states. 190, I know ours requires 180. I think I've heard somebody requires 190. Anyway, to fill all that seat work, you have to have book work to do. So it has that in there. We also felt like Becca was outdated. And I could keep going on, or you could watch our first Monarch video comparing Monarch to Becca, and I will link that up in the cards in the sky. So after leaving Becca and leaving another curriculum and going to a new curriculum, one thing that I did love with Monarch was all of our kids could take placement tests to make sure they were on track with what their grade was supposed to be and what Monarch wanted their grade to be able to do specific courses. So I had one do the placement test for 3rd grade, one for 5th grade, and one for 7th grade because at the time, all my kids were 2 years apart with school. Yeah, that's not gonna happen anymore. After taking the placement test, I had one that has completed 4th and 5th, one that has completed 6th and 7th, and I have one that has completed 8th and 9th. So let's start with just the 4th and 5th grades. I actually really enjoyed the 4th and 5th grades. And again, this is mostly supposed to be like my 2nd year review. So the 4th grade I've already reviewed in our 1-year review video. I'll try to link everything on my information on Monarch and my personal experience with it and share all that in the cards and in the description below. So for 5th grade, I actually really love the curriculum for 5th grade. I thought it was really well done. It had a really good balance of keeping the kids who learn more with hands-on, with more hands-on activities, or you can assign the hands-on activities and do more of just the base work with your kids, or you could just do a lot of just base work and then just do more of your own thing if you only wanted to do like the core classes, and that was it with Monarch. You could do that. 7th grade. I wasn't happy with 7th grade. So there were a lot of things that I weren't happy about. With the 7th grade math and higher, because now I've done 4th through 9th grade with Monarch. 7th grade, it just felt like a lot of either a necessary review, which if your kids are just switching into Monarch, maybe they'll need that. And like when we first switched into Monarch, our kids kind of needed some of the review work to catch up to what Monarch wanted them to learn on specific topics and things. But it kind of felt like a necessary review work a lot, like just repeating some of the same things over and over again that my kids learned in grade school with Abeka. So maybe some kids don't have that experience, maybe that's why they do it, but my kids didn't need that. So for us, it was just a lot of excess. So I was unassigning stuff. I told you we'll get to that in a minute. We were unassigning a lot of things. With the math, a lot of the time it was, there are little short video clips for the math, but my 7th grader is very visual learning, very hands-on, and there were some times with the math that there weren't on videos or places that I thought there should have been more videos to explain it, especially since it's all a digital curriculum. There weren't, and I was still sitting down and teaching through some of this math and explaining it. And the way that Monarch advertises is they grade 85% of the work, and you're supposed to, you know, be doing it together with them. But like they're still mostly teaching, and then you're mostly just coming in for the other 15%. But with 7th grade, I felt like I was doing the 85%. There were still times I had to go in and look at the grades and see why she missed it and have to explain why she missed the question on the digital grading system. And overall with 7th grade, I just wasn't hugely happy. So also like the history one. So history for 7th grade is weird. So in Tennessee, our state, she should have done state history. And most places I know, Abeka has a history level where like you do your state history. Monarch didn't. And instead, it kind of felt like they were just filling space with just stuff. Like it wasn't even stuff that really felt like necessary. It just felt like a lot of filler stuff and just a lot of things on there. And then when it came to science, this is my child who loves science, was looking forward to it. Her sister who just did 5th grade had a ton of science experiments. Her sister who was doing 9th grade had experiments. But 7th grade, there were hardly any at all. It was mostly read and do, and she hates doing science that way. And I didn't even realize, like I knew there wasn't a kit for it. And I was like, oh, okay, we'll just be able to, we don't need to buy a kit for it. We can already just get the stuff from the store. But there wasn't any experiments. We had to add in our own experiments to keep her interested in the science. All of the Bible classes I've been really happy with. I really am super happy with all their Bible classes for 5th, 7th, and 9th grade that we just finished up. So there's Bible, then there's history. She wasn't a fan of the history. The language was a lot of review, and then the math, and then the science. And so she just, by the time we got to the spring semester, she was not happy with schoolwork in general and was starting to think that like she was just bad at math. And she's my child who's not bad. I have one who's really good at math, but she's not bad at math. And I was like, this is not working. Something's not working. Let me pause there for a minute. Go on to 9th grade. I'm not a huge fan of the way that Monarch does high school. So let me explain. Yes, I know that there are certain math things that kids have to do, whether we think they're necessary or not, but there's a lot of things that like her math was doing that I felt was filler space for Algebra 1 that I did not think was necessary at all. I mean, I'm talking to my husband who works with engineers on a daily basis, who works with builders and construction. He has also worked in like financing for other places that he has worked before. My husband, if it's needed, if there's a math needed for a job, he would know. Like he would know. And then he's worked with other guys who have been through like even more training than he has. And a lot of them were like, that's really not necessary math. It just, why would they even teach that? There's no practicality to this math at all. So I started assigning a lot of that too and focusing back on the core fundamentals of Algebra 1. Then another thing that okay, this one is a personal preference. This is not a negative or a positive really towards anybody. This is my personal preference. If you're buying a curriculum and you're paying for a curriculum and the subject at the top does not say optional or not needed for high school graduation, it needs to say that. So the science for 9th grade, I was like, oh, she has to take this. It's called integrated physics and chemistry. So in my mind, I said, oh, according to Monarch, she will have to take this or she'll never be able to take chemistry and physics. I found out at the end of the semester that she did not have to take the entire course at all. And that was one of her biggest stressors for 9th grade, was that class, because there was so much cramming. So here's my other thing about that too, is like chemistry, you have to complete algebra 1, and physics, you have to complete it algebra 2. And so there were things in physics and chemistry that she needed to have known higher math already to do. So it was like, why is she doing this course? She should not be doing this course. Then I found out later, she didn't even have to. So that was kind of frustrating to me. Like, I think that if anybody from Monarch ever watched this video and ever got any ideas for how to improve the curriculum for other people, if it's not a necessary course for graduation, it needs to say it at the top or in the description before you purchase it of, this is not a necessary course, this is a prep course for other classes. Me, my first time with a high school kid, I was like, yeah, I have to do this. No, I didn't. I could have left that out and let her take other courses that she was more interested in instead, that she actually does need for her major that she's going to go into college for. So it was a little frustrating. Like I said, the math, and she did love the literature, and she loved that the literature had an emphasis on language. In the US, we're becoming more popular now with recognizing this. Sign language is a language. It's not just hand motions to English. It actually is a language. And her English curriculum recognized it when studying on other languages and language types. And she also did a book report. Her book report for 9th grade was on the miracle worker. So one subject that we were super impressed with was Monarch does offer foreign language. They offer 3 years of Spanish. So she wanted to take Spanish this year on top of taking ASL. She took 2 foreign languages this year. So she took ASL at an evening class taught by someone who used a curriculum from a college to teach. So it's kind of extensive, but she did really well with it. But she took ASL in the evenings, and for Monarch, she took Spanish 1. She did really well with Spanish. This is not like pat on the back, trying to get, woohoo, good for you. Here is how I know 100% sure that it was a good Spanish curriculum. Halfway through the school year, for one of the kids' birthdays, we went to a Mexican restaurant, like a sit-down Mexican restaurant in our area for lunch one day. We did like a lunch outing day. Every now and then we do what's called family day out, and it's a Saturday where we eat out of the house so nobody has to cook, and we take care of any necessary shopping and maybe some extra shopping like shoe shopping or something like that. It was one of those days, and it was around, we have 2 birthdays close together now. My daughter gets there, she can read everything on the menu, and not like everything, but she could read like what she wanted to order and knew what it was. And she ordered her entire meal in Spanish, and the waiter, whose native language is Spanish, understood 100% of what she said. And so like, I was like, wow, this, because it was one of those things I was like, you have to do Spanish, you have to do, because there were some days it was hard. But like, to be able to see that, I was like, wow, she's getting this. Not only is she getting this, she's getting this to the point of she can do this. And he was super impressed. Like, there were some things she didn't understand what he said back to her, because like she had never actually been on that one-on-one talking with a Spanish person before. But he was super patient with her, and by the end of the meal, like she could have somewhat of a conversation with them, and it was really cool. So that's how I know the Spanish was working really well. So now here's the part where I'm going to be talking about what are we doing for next year. Some of you may know as well that over the past year, we ended up with an emergency placement foster. In Tennessee, they actually, if you can, actually recommend homeschooling. I know in New York, they don't allow homeschooling foster kids. In Tennessee, they actually recommend it because some kids do better with some time in homeschooling, even if they do, like you later want them to go back to school, they do better that way. I actually know a current foster family who has foster to adopted one, and then they're still fostering. He's doing better in homeschool. So like some foster kids do better in homeschool, but Tennessee allowed us to continue fostering her, or continue homeschooling her, and she has improved greatly. Looking at fostering and talking to I have 2 guidance counselors at my umbrella school. One just for her, and then one who is a specialist for 7th, 8th, and 9th grade. And she does like special interest in 7th, 8th, and 9th grade. And when I say special interest, I was talking to her about, you know, I've got 2 kids, my foster and one more, who are visual learners. They need something that's a visual learning. They're not getting it from Monarch. She was not against Monarch. So here's my, let me add this in real quick. I am thankful for Monarch because of where Monarch grades most of the work for you. Monarch was an excellent transition to what we're fixing to do. And I feel like Monarch was never the end goal. It was just the next goal. And I am so thankful for the 2 years that we had Monarch to get us to the point where we're fixing to be. So coming up starting now this summer, and then coming up this fall as well, except for going back to the Spanish, we are going to continue the same Spanish curriculum because she wants to continue it. She loves the way they teach it. Oh, I forgot to mention, they also teach it country by country. So like you start with Mexico, and then you go like down a list of countries. They continue that for Spanish too. So we agreed to go back to Monarch for Spanish too. And you can buy just one subject from Monarch. You don't have to buy everything. It's fine. I don't feel like I was adequate to teach Spanish. So I'm still happy with doing a digital curriculum that teaches Spanish because I feel like you need to be able to hear it to understand it. Other than Spanish 2, we're not going back to Monarch. And it's not because we hate Monarch. It's because Monarch has now become the next step to teaching the way that we've kind of always wanted to. When we first started homeschooling, our first umbrella school was very much, if it's not an actual curriculum, it doesn't count. Nothing counted unless it was bookwork that you turned in. And I've learned more and more now. And thankfully through my new umbrella school and the 2 guidance counselors that we have, that's not the case. It's not always bookwork. Kids, it's not about, that kind of defeats the purpose of homeschooling for some families. It's not about sit down, do bookwork, go. And then just take a test, go, you're done. It's about learning and then retaining it and taking it into your life, their everyday life, and continuing learning all the way through your life. Like I said, I'm not against Monarch. I would go back to Monarch if it hadn't been for this new door opening for us. And that's the way I personally feel. I guess that's the best way to word this is we've now had a new door of learning open to us to do middle and high school for next year. I don't have any more elementary school kids, guys. I'm kind of sad about that because like I love teaching elementary school to my kids, but we're fixing to start a new chapter. There are many things, like I said, that led to this. Like we went from Rebecca, it was a great curriculum for K through 3rd grade, and it was not what we needed anymore, so we moved up to Monarch. And Monarch filled in those gaps that we needed and gave me that 2-year break to just kind of stand back and look and see what I wanted to do. So I told you I would get back to this. Let's get back to it. Here is my biggest point, and this is the only time I'm gonna mention it, of why I hate unassigning curriculum. If you are paying hundreds of dollars for curriculum and only using half of it, I feel like you're literally taking the rest of that money and throwing it away. And I hate that. I hate feeling like I'm throwing money away by putting hundreds. Every curriculum costs like hundreds of dollars. Like even Monarch's $300 a kid. If I'm only using half of it, I'm throwing $150 away. And that feels like a waste of money. From here on out, like I said, Rebecca was here, Monarch was our next step, and now we are going into our next journey. I'll throw it in here quickly. This is mostly a Monarch review, so I'll just throw it in here quickly. We're switching to visual learning. And I will be doing a video every week after this on Thursday or Friday. My goal is Thursday. Through the rest of summer to discuss what we're doing for our summer semester, what we are doing for our fall semester. And by the end of our fall semester, if we're just done, we'll probably go back to Monarch. I don't hate Monarch. It's just there's this new door that's open for visual learning. I'm not paying for curriculum that I'm only using half of. I'm paying for it as I go and kind of learning in our own way. But yeah, so I'm still super happy with Monarch. Like I said, if this just doesn't work and my kids need that discipline of something that's assigned to them every single day, like Monarch does automatically, then we'll switch back to that. But right now, we're gonna try this next journey. And like I said, I'm so thankful for that stepping stone, how Monarch became that stepping stone to the next stage of our learning. Thank you all so much for watching. Thank you to our members for supporting this content and allowing us to continue making videos. Thank you to all of you for supporting me with your positive comments, liking and subscribing, and we will see you next time.